name is Sai Sun. I'm 15 years old and I scored the gold medal in the Royal Commonwealth Society Essay Writing Competition of 2021. In the senior category, there were 4 questions to choose from. I decided to work on 2, discussing whether the greatness of the community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members, or giving a national address at the end of the pandemic as the head of a Commonwealth nation heavily affected by COVID-19. My second choice had to be the essay on compassion. After all, it was the only other essay that I did. This would really be the second choice left, and I had to make sure that I did it well despite the immense odds of failure. It turned out to be an average essay in the end, and I wasn't very satisfied with the final version for it. If it came down to a problem with me submitting my first choice of essay, I would need to use this essay instead. This was the national address essay. Now, India was one of the few countries left utterly devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Hospitals became overwhelmed with the skyrocketing number of patients being admitted each day. Not to mention that around the months of April to June, the average death rate was more than 3,500 per day. India was a great place to start with, and imagining such a country left in the wake of turmoil and destruction, finally overcoming the pandemic, it left much room for realistic solutions and imagination to take this speech to a whole new level. I chose to play the role of the Prime Minister of India. My research plan was very elaborate and extensive. There were a number of things that I had to look up. The average death rates per day, the number of cases per day, the distribution of COVID-19 cases in each state, etc. Other than information pertaining to the subject of COVID-19 itself, there were some background information of the country that were very important. This included the percentage of sectors making up India's economy, the percentage of demands and goods that the population required, the percentage of students in India able to access the internet for online classes, and the GDP of India. All the research and factual evidence were compiled in links and references in a separate document beforehand to make sure I kept them all organized. Of course, I dropped research information that were less important or weren't required for the national address. I think one of the main challenges not being a resident of India poses here was the face-to-face experience amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. When you witness heartbreaking moments or view situations that are unforgiving, in some cases even atrocious, you would feel more compelled to write emotionally and empathize with members of your audience that understands that sentiment. Other challenges included the speaking style of Indian leaders, as well as keeping up with the daily updates for COVID-related incidents in India. I went online to watch a documentary about the COVID-19 madness in India, especially recorded during the turbulent times of around April to June. Now, the secondary account of the various incidences occurring in India at that time was very useful, and it was more than vital for my research. Other than that, I had to dig deep into the archives of Prime Minister Modi's speeches, who is the current Prime Minister of India, to see how he is addressing the COVID-19 situation. I had to wake up every day and read the latest updates and statistics by Google and other Indian news websites like the Times of India and the Hindustan Times. So writing a speech when role-playing the Prime Minister is not the same as giving a speech in my daily capacity as a student in school. I was provided videos of famous speeches by leaders of different countries, presidents such as Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, Prime Minister of Singapore Lee Hsien Loong, and the Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi. All of them made very inspiring speeches that drastically affected my style of work. Among all of them, Lee Hsien Loong's speech captivated my heart, and I decided to reverse engineer the multiple paragraphs in his speech in an attempt to figure out his structuring and style. The chosen tonality of my speech was neutral. It leaned towards inspiring at some point, but the tone and the mood the speech created after it being read out felt just right. So I had all the versions inside this document itself. We shall check the version history, which we go over here. See the version history, and the earliest I've actually did this essay was in May 22nd May. I started on this essay. So as you can see, when it was 22nd May, there were a few times these are empty. There was an empty document at first. Then on the 23rd of May, I started with the first draft. So this is the first draft. It looked pretty small. There were about 749 words inside this essay, and then as it progressed over the days, there were some changes made. There had to be some extra words put in. May 25th, and by May 26th, I decided to up my game a bit. So now this essay had a lot of parts cut out, and we needed to add more words sometimes. So there were quite some changes. This was around the second draft, around May 26th, and by the end of May 26th, this was the final second draft that was being made. Now running it through again, and there were two more drafts that needed to be done. This was the third draft. Just now, the second draft had about 826 words. This one would have 1,475, which was 75 words over the word limit. So we needed to cut down a bit, but we also needed to check if the information gathered and the style of writing was correct. So therefore I spent the entire month of June trying to reduce a little areas of the speech, and but on June 5th we actually added all these references, as you can see here. Some of them include the impact of COVID-19 on the Indian economy by the Times of India. Another one was a Sage Pub journal. There's also the India Today, the New York Times, SP Global, and a YouTube link that was the documentary I was mentioning about the catastrophe in India. So all your references and links had to be placed at the end of your essay for submission. Yeah, and by that time it was very strange. I went over a lot. It was 1,509 words. We needed to cut down a bit. So then another month of June, on June 8th, this happened. More cuts, and it went down to 1,562. Now then finally we go to June 19th, in which the final essay was about 1,446 words long, and it cut down a lot. We also had to add the question in the senior category, and we also added a title, which was boosting the short term to safeguard our future. That was the title for our essay. We haven't included in it here, but we've put it inside a Word document. And yeah, this is the final draft. As you can see, it's much more complete. It's looking much more better than the first few drafts. And yes, this is the final adjustments and changes that included a near complete revamp of the second last draft and a few paraphrase sentences actually. Some extra facts were inserted and some grammar mistakes were corrected. Other errors were minor, but they're still pertinent nonetheless. Now, the use of specific writing techniques such as repetition, alliteration, and quotations provided a more concrete importance and depth to my points made in the speech. The usage of them were solely for the purpose of creating effect and shifting moods. For participants interested in signing up for the Commonwealth Essay competition and are looking for advice, I would say my top 3 tips to achieve success in any writing competition would be perseverance, empathy, and accuracy. Perseverance was fostered through the revision of many drafts that have accumulated over weeks of writing, and it is important to keep reviewing those versions again and again to encourage accuracy. Now, accuracy is important when you want to keep main points straightforward and succinct, but sometimes an increased accuracy in your speech doesn't appeal to members of the audience, as they need to be swayed by your words, not justified by them. That's where empathy comes in, and the human emotions start to fill in the gaps of your paragraphs. That is all from me. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and that was how I went through the preparation for my submission of the Royal Commonwealth Society Essay Writing Competition of